evening and to talk about a topic that has become really an impassioned piece for me, which is blue ocean energy. And I'll explain a little bit about each of those components. And I know Priya was back and forth. Well, you need to explain the name. You need to go more into what the name is about. And I said, the name is part of this. And it's really something that will explain itself. But really, we're going to talk a lot about minerals, the key foundations of our human health. We're going to get into the synergies and synchronicities that our body works from. And we're going to give you some pieces that you can actually take some steps today that will transform a lot of steps in the future. So sometimes we take 5 steps ahead and forget the first one. So we take a giant leap and then 5 steps. So today we're gonna ground some of those steps and connect some things. But this is your seminar, so at any point in time something doesn't make sense, or I'm going too fast, or you have a question, please just stop me, ask that question. Obviously we want to keep a flow, but we also don't want anybody to feel anxious or feel like they're not getting what they need out of here. So, so does anybody have to pee before we go? Okay, good. So my company is called Mastery of Play. That's an evolution of me over the last few years. I use the term mastery because ultimately it's what we rise to, and play is that ultimate freedom of living in that possibility. And it's not something held by children, it's something they are naturally invested in, but we all have the ability to do that. And Blue Ocean is the name of our seminar. So let's get a little bit into light is difficult on the ocean side, but I think everybody knows what an ocean is. So first of all, let's talk about blue. So the term blue means infinite. So when we connect blue and ocean and energy together, think about the idea of infinite. Clear. So clear in the sense that it's clear of all obstacles. So blue is held as the color of clear of all obstacles. It is a pure source. And in traditional language of blue ocean is considered to be 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers away from any human activity or industrialization. So blue ocean is considered a clear area of any industrialization or pollutants. And there is no inflow of pollutants into that area, which will play a big role when we talk about sourcing going further into the seminar. And of course, we are in our blue planet. And I'm going to talk about the human placenta, literally in its literal form. But what I like to describe is that the ocean, the waters, are like the Earth's placenta. It holds us as those that live on this planet. And it nurtures us and it provides for us. So that's the connection with blue. Ocean, of course. Ocean, a really important piece about an ocean is it's dynamic. So it does not hold any stagnation. So there's things that inflow and outflow, and it's constantly in a flow. Unlike a river that has a direction, it has an inflow and it's an outflow, but it doesn't actually move in that dynamic pattern. It's not a lake. So an ocean is a dynamic ecosystem. It's a living system. So an ocean creates its own living environment, and it provides within that environment. And if you get a chance, has everybody seen the Disney production, came out as IMAX originally, of Earth? There's one called Ocean and Oceans. It's a fantastic watch. It's just narrated by, who's the gentleman? Morgan Freeman. So you get he did the penguins. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really, really cool. 80% of our world is made up of water and the ocean, and 90% of our biology, including our whole water ecosystem, is similar to the blue ocean. So actually blood plasma is similar to the same constituents of minerals that are found in our clear blue oceans. So what an interesting synergy between that the outside world does reflect our inside world. And in true blue ocean, it contains all 74 minerals, the same 74 minerals that are found in the human placenta. So there's lots of connections between the blue oceans, and we'll talk about where those exist, and that. And so when we put those things together and we combine it with an energy perspective, it literally is the infinite dynamic energy, which is what we're going to talk about. And I'm not sure if anybody is interested in infinite dynamic energy, but occasionally people come into my office saying, I kind of want more energy. But they say it a little bit more dramatic than kind of. So we'll talk about that. So one of the things that we want to talk about is, where do we get our energy from? Where are the things that drive our energy forces in our body? What are the things that make us who we are, and provide for us from a healthy perspective? So the very first thing is we look at our body from a position of efficiency and deficiency. And so the first thing we want to see is how our food is working. So I'm going to talk about food from a perspective of making it simple. People are constantly asking me, what diet should I be on? Should I be vegan? Should I be paleo? Should I be paleo-vegan? Should I be a vegan? Which I don't know what that is yet. So it's like, it's a yearly vegan. I mean, I get asked it, and truly, honestly, it's much more about becoming conscious about what's going in your body and how you are interacting with those foods. And I have very specific things around foods that I tell people. I said there's 3 things that I walk through life as a slogan. I said I eat foods that are in their whole form, I eat things that are fresh and in season, and I eat things often. And when I come to a consciousness around that in every decision I make, then I am eating in balance with me. So whole foods are things that come directly out of Mother Nature's packaging, whether it be a seed, a shell, a husk, a peel. If you choose to eat meats, then you also want to consider them in that whole form as well. So, and in that case, it's really down to how the animal is treated. You know, are they able to be eating whole foods? Is there humane? Are they being able to move? You know, what's the processing, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more complications, and I'm not saying either direction of not eating meat or eating meat is a cure of health, but making sure that you're being conscious around that decision. I want to be clear that whole does not mean a whole bag of chips. It doesn't mean in Canada the donut whole or the Tim Horton, what do you call those things? Timbits. That is not a whole part of this whole thing. So that's not whole food. So we want to eat whole foods out of Mother Nature's packaging. We want to eat fresh foods. So we kind of go here in North America, what's fresh, right? So believe it or not, the freshest foods you will find are foods that came locally that were frozen. So sometimes fresh foods kind of come in a weird packaging right now, but also seasonal foods. So now we're into, you know, a lot of the yams, the potatoes, the root vegetables. You know, we still have some berries, apples, those types of things. So trying to keep as local as we can and seasonal as much as possible. People say, well, there's no fruits in season over the winter. And I'm like, exactly. Fruit has its own necessary needs, and the sugars and the waters that are in fruits are not something that we need a lot of during the winter months. So our body's much more into a stored capacity. So working in those seasons, also recognizing that spices and things that come around a certain season are also important. So things like the nutmegs and the cinnamons and the allspices and the cardamoms, all these things that come around the Christmas season, if you look at them, cinnamon regulates blood sugar, cardamom helps with regulating your heat and balance in the body, all the allspices help with digestion. So, I mean, these things didn't come randomly, ginger, all of those types of things. So recognizing that and looking at the herbs, the sages, that type of stuff. Sage is an incredibly good briner. It takes the sugar and the gases and helps all that kind of stuff. So working in season. And then finally, that whole capacity of eating often, small meals often. Think of yourself like a little engine, you know, and you're just putting a little bit of kindling in there, keeping things going, moving through the system. So I don't want to spend too much time on food, but really just being conscious, bringing that consciousness to it. Don't give your consciousness over to a fad or an idea. Bring it back to you, because in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, if I were to do your dosha and all that kind of stuff, each one of you would be eating slightly different, but you would also be eating different within a season as well. So it's not stagnant. We work with harmony with what the environment is providing for us. So being conscious of that. Digestion is a huge part of this. Biggest problems I see with people nowadays is they're coming in with massive digestive issues, but believe it or not, a lot of times big digestive issues, even colitis and ulcers and all that kind of stuff, really comes down to the levels of hydrochloric acid in the body. And I'm going to talk a little bit further about hydrochloric acid and minerals in the gut and how the gut communicates with the brain and how that regulates hormones and all kinds of stuff. So digestion, but a lot of times we have a big digestive issue that's actually a small change that will change things for you. Sleep. I don't know if you guys like to sleep. I enjoy it very much. I have an enormous amount of energy throughout the day, primarily probably because I sleep very, very well. And sleep really comes down to creating a good system with the body, you know, getting away from a lot of these things that overrun the brain and keep the brain wide awake. You know, the blue lights, the TVs, the iPhones, the computers, all that kind of stuff, and coming down to a traditional rhythmic sleep. In native medicine or indigenous medicine, they really work with, you know, sun up, sun down. Mm-hmm. So you sleep longer in the winter months, which we are, by the way, a natural hibernator. So don't resist so much that fact that you feel like you need to hibernate, especially during that transition at the end of October. You know, you could just feel it, like it kind of feels depressive, but really it's because your body just wants to hibernate. It's okay to take a little bit more rest and to allow that self to happen. So put on a little bit of weight to carry yourself through the season. I said a little bit of weight, so I'm not giving permission. She said put on weight. So it's like, no, so just a little bit of weight, allow yourself to relax and hibernate and be in that position. And then just create a really good system with yourself to you know, go to bed earlier in the darker months and kind of force yourself a little bit in the mornings, but and use things like your salt lamps and your red light lamps and your blue. We got red, blue, we got salt lamps, we got all kinds of. We can create whatever. We can just wake up to the disco spectrum and you're good. So, but help yourself with some of the different lamps and lights that are available. We're going to talk about the immune system a little bit. We're going to talk about pH. How many people recognize that the key to health is your pH level? And we're going to talk about minerals being the ultimate pH. How many people have been putting lots of greens in their body and trying to get their pH levels going? And we're going to talk about how minerals play into this. But also minerals play into the body's ability to deal with pathogens, particularly parasites and bacteria, and how when our pH is off, our whole body is open and susceptible to a lot of pathogens that normally wouldn't occur. So we're going to talk about that. And nanobacteria, these are bacteria that kind of create that chronic inflammatory response in the body. And then, of course, viruses. And there's different types of viruses. So these are the things that drive our health from both efficiency and deficiency. So when we look at the 4 pillars of health, so let's recognize that we are a pillar, we are a sustainable pillar, and we need 4 pillars in order for our bodies to function properly. If one pillar is off, just like in a chair or a table, you know, the chair, the table that you get to when you go to a cafe or something like that, and it's wobbly, it's the same thing that happens in your body, and it only requires one of them to be microbly off to create that kind of imbalance. And so these pillars are not divisible. So in other words, each pillar has to be sustained in the human body in order to be efficient and effective. And if you look at them, a lot of times what happens is people will drive towards one pillar and they'll build that up or they'll focus on that, and they'll forget the other ones. They also forget the interconnection or the dynamics between those pillars. And so tonight we're going to talk about each of those pillars and how do we create that foundation. And then we're also going to create the platform underneath that foundation. So those 4 pillars are minerals, and those minerals are minerals, microminerals, trace elements. All of them are taken into consideration. And many people work with 1 or 2 minerals, but they don't work with the whole gamut of 74 minerals, mostly because they're very hard to find in our diet. When we look at cellular essential fats, people have heard of fats, essential fats. There's different forms of fats, and we'll talk about that. Essential fatty acids and brain fats, and also our what we call regulatory fats, these things that we're starting to talk about, right? Things like coconut oil and those types of things. The microbiome, which is your digestive system, but more than your digestive system. It's your digestive system and how that digestive system communicates with the entire body, and how that is actually a bigger brain than your brain is. And how we're really, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about this, but I'm really going to tie it together of how that microbiome, how you can get that microbiome on track pretty quickly if it's one of your pillars that's off, and how that will ultimately affect everything, including brain chemistry, mental wellness, all that type of stuff. And then each of us has something that's moving in the pillar, something that's come up in our body that we're looking at. And I describe that as our unique health equation. Like, what is the component that is missing in my body that I need to work with, and how do I identify it? And a lot of times it comes down to, we need to make sure that these first 3 pillars are stable, and then the 4th one exposes itself. But what we a lot of times do, and particularly from the medical side of things, is they look at the symptom of the 4th pillar, and then they start to create a therapy in many different ways just at that 4th pillar, and then you start to create this pillar in this weird direction and throws everything off, right? So we want to work with the body and that synergistic side of things, and sometimes it means coming back, taking a lot of things out, and then starting back up again. We'll talk about toxins, but let's start into our pillars. So I'm really sorry that this is really light. I will absolutely send you this. I just need your contact information. So if you can't see this, you're blind. Sorry. No, it's really bad. Even on the screen, I looked at it. So I don't need to look at it, so that's okay. But something is up there. So minerals make up every single element of our human body. There is not a cell, a cellular interaction, or a cellular reaction that doesn't require minerals to be a part of it. And we require a synergy of 74 minerals. In our diet today, and in the primary way that we get minerals, we get about 9. Oh. So it goes to say that our health is in jeopardy because our primary pillar is already being thrown off. And if we look at a lot of the diseases today, I was sharing in Dr. Maynard. He was a triple heart winner by 3 different presidents. He was an Australian man, Australian physician, and he was an eye, ears, and nose specialist, and he studied microbes. And he looked at the interaction between the levels of microbes in the body and the levels of minerals available. And he started to do research on basically the direction of health based on the minerals that were available. Now, we don't just get minerals from the soil. And that's one of the things that people need to recognize. Our primary source of minerals is from the soil, and our soil used to have about 36 minerals in it. But unfortunately, due to over-farming practices, monocropping, fertilization, pesticides, a lot of changes in our atmospheric rain, you know, all that kind of stuff. Even these things with fires and mudslides and all that kind of stuff have really depleted out our soil. And what happened in the late 80s is that we started to create monocropping and supercrops, and we flushed everything with nitrogen and phosphorus. And when we have high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, other minerals are basically flushed out of the soil because there's no space for them. And so it destroyed any mineral reservoir. So by the mid-80s, our soils had become very, very depleted. Now, Dr. Maynard looked at how microbes interacted in a body that was becoming more deficient in minerals. And what he recognized is that the more minerals we lost in our diet and our soils, the more microbes were able to invade the human body and more diseases came up. And he literally became the Nostradamus of diseases. And he was able to show the lineage between certain diseases and the lack of minerals in our diet. But he was so profound in what he researched that he died in the 1980s, and he had predicted that we would see high levels of inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, diseases that didn't even exist before he died, cross-species of animals to the human body, antibiotic-resistant diarrhea, all of this. And this was all based on the fact that he looked at the mineral deficiencies that were occurring, and as these would deplete in our soils, these would be more and more diseases that would come up around this. It was phenomenal. When I've read his papers, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then you see when he died, and you're like, wow. But his research was done between 1936 and 1956. So it was republished in the 80s. He's already dead when they republished it. So we know this connection. We also get minerals from rain. We get minerals from the sun. And this is one of my greatest pieces because I've been researching this. And as I mentioned, my mom has MS. One of the biggest linkages they have with MS is vitamin D deficiency. Now, vitamin D has not become less available to us. We still have vitamin D available. But vitamin D is actually found and converted through a sunbeam. So all of us know that, right? That the sun provides vitamin D. But it's actually two minerals that occur in that sunbeam that convert the vitamin D to the D2, not D3, D2 that the human body needs in order to activate it throughout our immune and nervous system. And those minerals have been diffracted in three ways. One is acid rain. So the acid rains have blocked the sunbeam. And then the two other ways are humans. They've done it through the types of chemicals that we've put on and in our skin, and also the fact that we cannot, just because of the different rays that are now in the sun, be out there naked and allow pure exposure. Although the Australians are doing it now. Of course it's Australians, right? They actually are doing sunbathing back again. I mean, where it's considered the most deadly area to sunbathe, they're out there doing their 20 minutes of naked bathing. And actually, they're seeing the opposite effects. They're seeing less cancers occurring, higher levels of vitamin D absorption, better neurological responses. So it is actually working. It's a 20-minute exposure. They're doing retinal, staring into the sun, all that kind of stuff. Of course, this is the Australians, right? So it's crazy, man. Anybody Australian who've been to Australia? They are a little crazy. So, we are coming back, you know, to this, and because the Earth is also healing, that ozone is starting to heal. There's also other things happening. So believe it or not, it's a mineral. So what is a mineral? A mineral, how many people have an idea of a mineral as being like a grain of sand or something that you can actually see? Is that kind of, does anybody have that idea? It's actually not that. Within a grain of sand, there can be many minerals. So it's actually a charged particle. It's either a positive or a negative charged particle. And so, and each of them are based on the periodic periodic table of minerals. And some of them can be metals, some of them can be gases, and some of them can be compounds as well. So it's a charged particle. And so we actually get them, minerals are in the air as much as they're in the ground or they're in a rain droplet or anything like that. So they're available to us in a variety of different ways. So they affect our air quality, and our air quality affects the minerals as well. So how do we know we need 74? The human placenta actually has all 74. We are born, and this is one of those divine things, if you wanted to say, of magic, that despite the fact that we are deficient in minerals, somehow the ovary and the sperm come together and they create this embryo, and this embryo grows inside a sac full of water that has all 74 minerals. And the highest concentration of minerals and mitochondria are actually found in the human egg. So there's something in there that genetically or somehow ties in there. And we don't know. Nobody studies minerals because there's no money in it. And it's very complicated. So, but there's something in there because you can take a placenta from a famine-based baby born in Africa to somebody that's had a very good diet in North America, and the same 74 minerals occur in that placenta. And they actually are now encouraging women to take placental pills. They're working with them with postpartum depression, and that's been actually a cultural thing. Many cultures, they'll eat the placenta. If you look at the animal kingdom, everybody thinks they're doing it to protect their babies. No, they're actually doing it to regenerate the health and nutrition of the body. So those 74 minerals exist. They also exist in pure blood plasma. So they still exist in the human body, yet there's no ability to find them in much of our diet. So there's something very unique happening. But at the same time, when we look at every major disease, including things like MS, neurological diseases, immune diseases, inflammatory diseases, arthritis, cancers, even, blot that out, I'm not supposed to say that word, they all go down to a mineral deficiency, like high selenium or low selenium, low zinc, low magnesium. We've heard low calcium. They're all associated with mineral deficiencies. Yet we can take those supplementally. So everybody's taking selenium, calcium, magnesium, and what's happening? We're all becoming like overabundant in them now, right? Like calcium, everybody took calcium for a long period of time. I've got osteoporosis. I don't personally, but say, oh, they told osteoporosis. They go to the doctor. Okay, take Tums. Not sure, just a little bit. But they tell you, go take calcium. But the bones actually are not, they're made up of a very small amount of calcium, very important part, absolutely. But the bones are made up of silica, they're made up of a plethora of other minerals, and those all work synergistically. So what happened when we started to take one mineral in isolation, we actually created an overgluttony. And then our body started to calcify. We started to get kidney stones. We started to get stiffness and soreness and other issues coming as a result of that. Things like frozen shoulder, other types of arthritis were developing because we had too much calcium in our body and our blood. And now we're being told, okay, well, it's because we didn't have enough magnesium, right? So now we're like, okay, let's take magnesium. So now everybody's taking magnesium. Meanwhile, they're taking magnesium, and we're like, I got diarrhea every day because too much magnesium will cause that, right? And actually, I'm a really big fan of magnesium, and I do believe we are deficient in it. It's very hard to find in our soil. But I think if we continue to take that in isolation, we're going to create some issues as well. Chromium, tons of people were taking chromium, vanadium for blood sugar issues. A lot of men are taking zinc for their prostates and so on and so forth. You take high levels of zinc, and I'm talking only 50 milligrams in a long period of time, it actually breaks down the immune system. So it does the opposite effect. So we know that minerals are important. We know that they're related to certain diseases. But yet, if we start taking them in isolation, they create other imbalances as well. So there's something in this synergy. There's something in this synergy. So how do we get this synergy? Well, the very first thing is we have to eat whole, fresh food. That's a very, 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 very first thing, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is we have to question where our food is coming from. So what is the soil? Can we support the soil? Is there ways of rejuvenating and renourishing the soil? Because even the best organic foods have crappy soil, unfortunately, right? So can we create a rejuvenating system for our soils? We're going to talk about this. But if every single cell in our body, every single action, interaction, reaction occurs in the process of minerals, I'm deficient in it, I can't supplement it in a balanced way, what do I do? What do I do? Right? So we're going to talk about that. But really, there is a source. There is a source. We don't have to be so afraid. So there's our first pillar. We're going to come back to those minerals, by the way, because they play a role in everything. The second pillar is our essential fatty acids. How many people take fats here, flax oil, primrose oil, all that kind of stuff? Yeah, okay, good. So the term essential, cellular essential, that's actually a term that's important to recognize. Essential means that the body needs it, but cannot produce it. So it's essential. So it's absolutely, if you don't have it, you create a deficiency as a result of that. So, and these are cellular essentials, which means they work on a cellular level at the body, right? So we have two cellular essentials. We have essential fats, and these essential fats, this could be a seminar on its own. So these essential fats are in the family of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. There used to be omega-3, 6, and 9. Now we have 7. And soon there'll be 11. There's another omega that they've discovered. If you want to research really good information on fats, it's a great book. It's by Udo Erasmus, called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And it's a great book. If that's your element, you really want to understand it, that's the resource for you. Ultimately, we just have to recognize we need to incorporate fats, good fats, into our body. And we also need to incorporate the new fats that we now recognize, DHA, EPA, which is our brain fats. And these are found in a variety of things: nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, small species of fish. And I talk about small species of fish because they're less likely to have pollutants in them because they have a shorter lifespan, but they tend to have higher levels of essential fats in them, like mackerel and sardines. It's not something we eat a lot of in our traditional diet, but in many, many diets they do. And then also our planktons. And there's a really great product, I don't know if they carry it here, called Oceans Alive. If you're a vegan or vegetarian and you're looking for a really good source of the brain fats, EPA and DHA, Oceans Alive is an incredible phytoplankton product for those good fats. And that's how I supplement, because I don't eat animal proteins and I don't consume those types of fats. So that helps to nourish my brain and work with those EPA, DHA levels. So, and fat deficiencies primarily show up as everything, everything from a cellular level. But basically, your brain requires, it's a medium of fat. Every single cell in the body is made up of fat. All the joints are lubricated. All the bones are held together by fat. And so we need them. And about anywhere from about 1 tablespoon of good cellular fat a day, but also incorporating small things into our diet. I'm a really big fan of seeds. I think seeds are one of the best things that we can incorporate into our diet. I believe that everybody should have a pantry full of seeds. They tend not to go rancid as quickly as nuts. They're not as high in calories, and they're much more rich in essential fats. So this is everything from sesame seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, and just basically sprinkle them on everything. Have fun with them. They all have very robust and nice flavors, but they're not bold like a nut, and they're much more easier to manage. One of my favorite things is to do chia pudding. So I take the chia, I put coconut milk, and I put it in the fridge for about 15 minutes, and it makes like a tapioca pudding. And you put that little bit of raspberry and glaze and stuff like that. Everybody thinks they're getting a decadent dessert. So it's great. But just have a good apothecary of seeds and just add those into everything. Like literally soups, chilies, chowders, everything. Like they're not destroyed. You don't want to cook with them, but you can put them into stuff after you've finished cooking. And the same with the oils. You don't want to cook with the oils. You want to put that in afterwards. Cook, if you're doing a stir fry or anything like that, cook with water. Stir fry, I stir with water all the time, and then you put the oil on after it's come off the heat, and so it's preventing it from going rancid. And just get really comfortable with fat. You know what? You'll never get fat from fat. I guarantee it. You can consume an enormous amount of fat and your body will convert it. I mean, I'm talking good fat. If you eat cheeseburgers and fat like that, you're going to get fat. But that's something totally very different. So, but good essential fats, you will actually burn metabolically. You will burn much more efficiently. Your body will work more efficiently. Your brain will work more efficiently. And we really, really are fat deficient in our diets, not fat efficient in our diet. So, and don't just rely on coconut oil, and everybody's into coconut oil. There's so many different nice oils as well. And coconut is an option as well. And key thing about minerals, they activate the fats in the body. So a lot of people will take fats and they'll say, you know, I kind of am getting fat, or I'm getting oily patches coming out of my skin, or I get, you know, my stomach doesn't really like this, or you know, I'm getting gassy. And I'm like, oh, you don't have the right minerals to be able to activate the fats in the body. They take minerals, boom, the fats immediately start to convert. So if you're deficient in minerals, you will actually not be able to convert fats efficiently. So if you're one of those people that have been taking essential fats and going, this is not really working for me, like it doesn't feel right, or I feel nauseous when I take them, or all those things that I was talking about, then you could be mineral deficient, and that's why the fats are not activating in your body. So.
For seeds, can you also be including pumpkin and
absolutely, yeah.
sunflower?
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the seeds. If I didn't say a seed, I don't have any issues around seeds. I think every seed is a great seed. So, yeah. And there's so far less potential for them to go rancid as well. So, yeah, so absolutely. And raw, of course, because once you start to roast anything, it converts the oils, and then you lose all the good benefits of the essential fats. So you do want to have them raw. Yeah. Amino acids. So amino acids make up protein. So a lot of times people will be told an essential component of my diet is protein. But really what is essential is the amino acids. You do not have to consume animal protein in order to get all essential amino acids. They can be found in a vegan diet, but you also can find them in animal proteins as well. Making sure that you choose good sources on either side, right? So fake hot dogs from a vegan source and hot dogs from a human, or not, no, we don't want human hot dogs, but from an animal source are still crap, right? Just, you know, so we still want to choose really good sources, you know, lean meats if we're choosing to consume animals, and we want to use our good sources of beans and lentils and rice and combinations of good things. I actually discovered something called jackfruit, and the company I work with, Eco Ideas, they brought in jackfruit, and it's the most comprehensive amino acid fruit that you can find, and they've made it into a meat substitute, so like, you know how they used to, and so it's great. So they made it into shredded in cubes, because it's, and they haven't done any, they've just basically take the fruit and they've shaped it into different things, and it's amazing. Like, it's great, and it's very high in fiber, all the essential amino acids, and it's a superfood. And so they've used this superfruit in this food, and they've created you know, protein products out of it, and I think it's fantastic. And they haven't done anything. It's not cooked or denatured or anything like that. So really, really cool vegan source of protein out there, rather than, you know, the soy sources. Forget seashells. Try to say soy sources. And so, you know, soy is not our best friend all the time. But if we go to traditional soy, the tempehs and that type of thing, where they're using them in traditional fermented forms, the misos, that type of stuff, then we've got better use of the soy rather than you know, just the convection product, that type of thing as well. So, and you know, there's enormous amount of proteins found in even, you know, vegetables and stuff like that, and those proteins are formed in the form of amino acids, and they, along with fats, make up your cell wall. So they're important as well. And that phytoplankton I was telling you about, the oceans alive, also contains all the essential amino acids. So if you are a plant-based eater and, you know, are lacking both the fats and the proteins in their forms of EPA, DHA, and amino acids, that's a supplement you can take, and it's a plankton supplement, so you can do that. Or also introducing planktons into your diet as well, if you're savvy that way. I'm not so savvy with planktons. So, and I need to have a little bit more Asian influence in me in some way. So, and then the microbiome. Again, lots of conversation. Each of these can be their own conversation. So don't feel like I'm trying to rush through something. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what your four pillars are. Your intestinal microbiome is made up of your villi, so the health of your intestinal tract, your bacteria, your friendly bacteria, as well as other incriminate bacteria. We have an ecosystem in there, so don't be too afraid that there's other things in there. It's the part of the whole gamut of things. Your natural enzymes, and then your natural acids. So that's what makes up the microbiome. And that microbiome is in direct communication with the brain. So what happens in the microbiome communicates with the brain. And one of the most essential things that happens in the microbiome is the uptake of a hormone called serotonin. Has anybody heard of that hormone?
Mm-hmm.
That's the happy hormone, right? That's what makes us happy. It also works with our melatonin, our dopamine levels to regulate sleep. And it is the most essential hormone for that brain to be activated. And it is not a brain hormone. It is an intestinal hormone that is uptake from the intestinal tract to the brain. And if your microbiome is off, then that serotonin cannot be converted into the brain. The number one thing that converts that serotonin from the microbiome to the brain is your mineral capacity. And there's about 10 minerals that specifically work with the conversion of serotonin to the brain. And so I work a ton with people with severe mental issues, not psychosis necessarily, but depression, anxiety, all that type of stuff. We work with their microbiome, we work with their intestinal conversion of serotonin, and their entire outlook on life is converted. And also they get restful sleep, which is the number one reason why you will literally lose track of your entire life is if you're not getting proper sleep. And with women, we have these hormones that come into play, and they throw off all that kind of stuff, or estrogen or progesterone, and they throw off our natural serotonin uptake because it gets diffracted through the digestive tract. And minerals help that serotonin convert quickly to the brain and regulate the melatonin, the dopamine levels in the body. So it's absolutely essential. And we have an incredible microbiome lab here at the University of Calgary and at the Foothills Hospital. They're working with microbiome in relationship to diabetes, of course, because your blood sugar is regulated through the microbiome, particularly your intestinal flora. I do highly recommend people take a good probiotic as part of their essential foundations of their health. But interesting enough, probiotics, in order for them to be activated, they need to ferment, and the fermentation process happens during the process of minerals. And we're not sure actually if minerals create the fermentation process or if mineral absorption is the byproduct of the fermentation products. But I will tell you a few things that happen. So when we take the Aussie minerals, and we do some experiments with them. So two things that I've done. One was a self-experiment, which is kind of funny, and the other one was an actual chemistry experiment that we were doing. So the first one, do you want to hear the funny one first, or do you want to hear the chemistry experiment first?
Funny.
Okay, so the natural fermentation, how many people have ever consumed kombucha? Okay, so kombucha has a lot of value to the microbiome. It helps with the fermentation. It tastes good. It's a lovely drink. I have a hard time with kombucha because it bloats me and it doesn't really digest really well for me. But I know that it's because the fermentation process is kind of backwards for my system. So we've been doing all the experiments with the minerals and fermentation. And I said, well, I'm going to take some extra minerals. I took my favorite kombucha beverage, and it was kind of gurgling in my stomach. And so I thought, I'm going to add some minerals to the kombucha beverage and see what happens. So I add some minerals to the kombucha beverage, and right away my digestion is stabilized. And that's actually one of the ways I use the minerals. If my digestion goes off, I'll use the minerals, drop a few drops in. So I added this kombucha. And my digestive system's feeling good. I know I'm getting the bloating and the gas. I'm really enjoying the flavor of the kombucha. And I'm also getting really happy at the same time. Remember, it's accelerating fermentation. And I'm getting happier and happier. And I'm dancing and I'm singing, which is quite normal for me, actually, but a little bit more so. And I'm energized through the roof. I am flat out drunk.
Yeah.
But not in a drunk way where I couldn't. I was the opposite. I was energizingly drunk. So I had all the happy values of being drunk with not the depressive values of it being an alcohol. And so it was literally this euphoric drunk context. So if you want to get a quick high, take some kombucha and add the minerals. But it was wonderful, and it taught me about what that was doing. But what that was actually doing was accelerating the fermentation and the good friendly bacteria and the uptake of the nutrients, which is, kombucha has a lot of that. And I was literally being intoxicated by nutrients. That's what was happening. And it was really cool. But I had a lot of energy. And it was kind of later at night, so it wasn't the best experiment. But I was laughing. My dog was like, what is going on? I'm dancing, I'm singing, I'm making up songs. So yeah, it was great. And so in doing that, we actually work with a kombucha company. We actually are working with a company to create a mineralized kombucha. So we're really excited about that. And believe it or not, I'm excited to potentially make an energy beer. Not that I'm into alcohol, but I'm like, could we make something that's actually good for us? So, but the other experiment is we're working with probiotics. And when we take a prebiotic, so a fiber, and when we take a probiotic and we take the minerals, that is the most active microbiome experiment you could ever find. It accelerates the good friendly bacteria. It increases the fermentation of the fiber, so it's releasing all the nutrients of the fiber. It's helping the whole gastrointestinal tract become active, so it basically alivens the enzymes and then just floods the nutrient. So anything that comes in contact with that, so if you take your multivitamin, I really like a product called Samu Raw. So if you take Samu Raw, which is it's a whole raw food organic multivitamin by Brad King, and if you take that product and you take the minerals and a probiotic, it's like the balm of the digestive tract. It's such a plethora of nutrients, and it's amazing how that works. And that's that synergy of fermentation, because fermentation is the active component of digestion in the human body. And so now we are looking at working with probiotic companies, helping them accelerate, because we keep putting more and more probiotics into a capsule, like 50 billion, 100 billion, soon we're going to have like 200 trillion million. I'm like, where are these all coming from? Like, where are we getting them? But when you add the minerals, you can take 10 billion, which is pretty much the active form, the amount that the body needs, and the minerals activated in the body, and then you don't just have a culture, you have an active culture, which is totally different, bioactive culture. And so we're really excited to do that, because with people that have serious digestive issues, specifically ileitis, colitis, any of the inflammatory bowel disorders, or have liver issues or diabetic issues, that creates a very dynamic process that changes the trajectory of the disease and the inflammation itself. So really there's an awesome thing to be able to do that with. And it's a small little micro change that you can do. So you can have a fun experiment at home, and you can also really benefit the microbiome. But the other thing that this does is the serotonin uptake levels go way up, way up. So, because I remember I was happy too, right? So, so that's the other element of it. So the microbiome is really, really important. So, and then the last piece, and I could really literally talk about the microbiome forever, but the last piece is your unique health equation and what is going on with me. So you may sit here, okay, she's talked about a few things that touch for me, that makes sense, but you know what? I have hot flashes 24 hours a day, I have night sweats 23 hours a day, I don't sleep, I'm sad one day, happy the next, and I don't, like I'm just giving an example, or, my body aches, or I'm inflamed, or I'm getting chronic infections, or that type of stuff. And the thing is those are symptoms, and they're very, very serious symptoms. I'm not taking away from any of that. But I will go back to my poor mom. When anybody meets my mom, they're like, oh, you're Allison's mom. But my mom has MS, and I can't chase every symptomatic she has. And so, we've got her on high levels of vitamin D, we've got, doing all this type of stuff. My mom is 74, so there's probably other things. She's probably got arthritis, she's probably got other things going on. But I said, Mom, why don't we just go back to basics? And we've never had to, and very fortunately had to do a lot of medical intervention. She's on only one prescription medication, and we just manage things. And so I got her back, and I said, let's go back to your 4 pillars. Let's make sure we're managing all those 4 pillars. And I said, so here's the symptom pillar, here's the MS, that's the symptom pillar. Okay, so we're gonna let that one drug that you take manage that pillar, just for now. Okay, so let's just see if that managed it. And then I said, I'm going to go back to each of your other pillars and see, and not be complicated. So right away, put her on the minerals and a little bit of magnesium if she gets into some muscle cramping, all that kind of stuff. I put her on high levels of vitamin D. By the way, remember minerals, remember the sunbeam, vitamin D? How many people are taking vitamin D? Okay, if you're without minerals, you're not uptaking your vitamin D. You're not converting it to D2, which is the vitamin, that's the form you want. D2 is the actual form.
So what's the D3? Oh, sorry.
No, so D3 is the higher grade, D2 is the convertible grade that actually activates through the body. And this is new science, so you're going to start to hear about D2 a lot. So, but it is, D3 is the form that we take in it, D2 is the convertible form that activates in the body. So D3 is the active form that we want to, we can actually, there is products that are now D2 derived as well, but D3 is the active form we consume it in. D2 is the form that it converts into the body to become activated throughout the cellular system. But where that works from, and from what I can see, it's a mineral equation. And what's really exciting is that for 25 years, it took me 25 years to go back to the very first thing that I studied, which was minerals. So, and remember back when I started my clinical practice, one of the big things, because, you know, she was there, was I put people on probiotics, minerals, multivitamin. Back then we didn't talk about vitamin D, right? So, but now we know. So,
cod liver oil.
So cod liver oil is a natural source of vitamin D and vitamin A. And for many, they can convert it. For some, they can't. But it is a natural source. We just don't know the exact quantity of vitamin D.
It's D3, though.
It's D3, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but if you're taking cod liver oil, sometimes cod liver oil also has natural minerals in it. And actually, that's why cod liver oil was so effectively efficient, because it had the natural sea minerals in it. So my grandfather was British, and he was a physician who worked in mental health. And one of the first things he did, they thought he was crazy. I didn't even know he did this until he passed away, but they thought he was crazy. He went to the mental ward in New Brunswick, and first of all, he turned the doors around, because the doors were actually the other direction, so all the patients could basically barricade themselves in. So that was the first thing he did, he convert the doors to the other direction. The second thing he did is he put them on, because he was British, so each person got a tablespoon of cod liver oil every morning. 60% outpatient rate in 2 months.
Wow.
And if you think about it, if you've ever been to the East Coast in the wintertime, there's gloomy, there's no sunshine, right? So this was in the 60s, so, you know, there was something to that. Absolutely something to it, for sure, yeah. And back then, that was the pure vitamin D deficiencies as well. So, yeah. So minerals actually convert that D3, you still use D3 in its form, and also convert it to D2. And we used to think it was just magnesium, but again, and I work a lot with magnesium companies, and we talk about all the different forms of magnesium, but there's a synergy that we're missing. And so it's all of the minerals, at least 20 minerals work together to do that conversion. And do you know how efficient your body becomes if it converts vitamin D? The things that will happen. So, you know, so that's what I did with my mom. Put her on high doses of vitamin D, got her on the full spectrum of minerals, used a little bit of magnesium when she needed it, got her on a good probiotic, and then the health equation started to go a little bit more clear of what was going on. And now we're working on, you know, a specific symptom, which is the urinary tract infections. And so we're working on that. And the symptoms became more and more, less dynamic and more clear. And so that's what I mean about, and I work with people to find their individual health equation, because sometimes there are certain deficiencies that are coming either through their diet or, you know, certain lifestyle things. And also part of that equation is, what are you doing with your body? Your body needs to move. You know, like your body is meant to move, right? So if it can't move, then we need to get it to a position if it can. If it can move, then how can it work? Because your body needs to be physically active. It just needs to be. We change our physical activity through our lifetime, but we need to be active. We also need to have a state of ourselves where we're with ourselves. People will call this meditation, mindfulness, all that kind of stuff, but we need to be able to come to a space of quietness within ourselves. We need to have this practice. We need to have these pieces for us. That's a journey that I'm so grateful that I've spent so much time to come back to. And trust me, being with me sometimes is really hard. You know, you're standing right in front of me. No, sitting in front of me. But you need this. This is part of our health equation. It's not just what we eat, but it's how we think, how we see things, how we process things, you know, how we interact with people, how we need to not always interact with people, you know, how we come back to ourselves and be in that space and being connected with us and that source. And that source can be us or it can be something else. I don't ever put a label, don't need to. But that's part of our health equation as well. So how do we get there? You know, our breath. Our breath is part of our health equation. Does anybody know that yoga actually translates to medicine of the breath? So we made it into this big yoga craze and Lululemon and bending over and all this kind of stuff, sexy arms Madonna. But really what yoga is, it's using the breath and the body in a synergy. So our breath is a form of medicine. And how many of us don't connect with our own breath, right? So these are pieces that we need to be able to connect. So that's that fourth pillar, and it's part of it. And sleep, whether we're becoming efficient with our sleep, right? So people ask me, do you sleep? I said, very well. I said, I really do. And I said, it's because I really go out every day and I live my life, right? So it's really super cool. And I love working with people to connect them with that too. Like, what does it make you tick? Like, what, you like paper clips? Awesome. Let's just make you the queen of paper clips and let's go after that. But living out something that's, and the other piece of that equation is being able to give and offer. And most of us, all of us have that sense of giving. I know it. I see it in everybody. But sometimes we don't realize that what we give is actually what is our passions. And so when we are connected with that, we get to give out ourselves more freely. So making, you know, and creating that community. So those are all part of our health equation. So when we get those four pillars, we are now standing on our own 2, 3, 4 feet, right? So, but what synergizes all of those pillars is minerals. And one of the things that I look at is the truth is that we all need these minerals, and our bodies are really crying in deficiency to them, but yet we have a hard time finding them. So let's look at the sources of where we find our minerals. So minerals are involved in over 1,500 metabolic processes. I doubt you want me to list them all. So let's look at where minerals are found. We find minerals in our food. As I indicated, even with the best, most efficient diet, we have about 9 up to about 12 minerals that can be found in our North American soil. Our North American, the highest population of the entire world, is found in the western side, and particularly the North American side of the world. And also we are the most industrialized, so we have created the most problems for the earth itself and maintaining those minerals, from monocropping, fertilization, you know, overcropping, that type of stuff as well. We can find minerals through mining. Believe it or not, the eggshell plant that if anybody's ever driven out to Canmore, you'll see that big facility on the right-hand side that produces minerals for construction and other things. But believe it or not, there's a small percentage of that produces minerals that go into supplements and so on and so forth as well. So you can get minerals from the mine sources. We also have mineral supplementations that come from lake sources. There's a couple of different brands that come from lakes. Lakes are landlocked, obviously, and they have no flow. And you know, 90% of our lakes, unfortunately, are quite highly polluted, including one of the bigger sources where a mineral product is sourced from, which is the Great Salt Lake. Has anybody ever been to Salt Lake? Yeah. There's 2 species of brine shrimp that live there. Otherwise, it's a toxic bloom, and there's nothing that can grow in that, and that's actually a source of minerals in a supplement. So, and then 78% of the world's hemisphere lives in the North American side, so we deplete our minerals really aggressively. So what are our other sources? And this is where I'm going to talk about the Aussie trace minerals. I call them blue ocean minerals because they're actually sourced from the southern tip of Antarctica, between Australia and the southern tip of Antarctica. And they're truly in blue ocean. They're actually over 1,000 miles away from any industrial activity or human contact. And even in that contact, less than 20%, about 23% maximum of the entire world population lives in the southern hemisphere. Also, where these minerals are sourced from, the whole flow of water is downward, so everything flows down through that system and then rotates back up through the trade winds. So they actually get all of the minerals that are depleting out of our soils. Remember, the Earth is not, the landforms on the Earth are actually still have water underneath them, right? So this landform, as things flush down onto them, they actually form down into the deep blue oceans and into the soils. And so this is actually the soup bowl that carries all of those minerals. And North America is the soup bowl for all the toxins that flow down. That's why we have motorcycles, and they're still testing the nuclear levels of the Pacific West Coast due to the Fukushima in Japan, right? And that was 6 years ago. So, so we are the recipients of all the toxins. The southern hemisphere is the recipients of all the nutrients, and that's how they flow. And the deepest, richest form of minerals that we've been able to find, you got to watch that show Minerals, the show Oceans, because they actually show this about all these beautiful fish species that come to these areas of blue ocean. And they sustain this huge ecosystem. So within that, we have the soils that have minerals, but then we also have the fish and the blooms and the green life. And this ecosystem creates this diverse form of mineral pools. And that's where these are sourced from. And all 74 minerals are found in this blue ocean. And what's really, really cool about it is there's nothing we have to do as humans. We just literally, the company itself just takes off small amounts of ocean. They dry it out in the sand and the wind, so there's no environmental stresses put on this. And within the salt crystals, the minerals are found, and then they titrate those minerals. And what's also really unique about this company is that they can actually tell you exactly what's in there. So other companies and other brands have never been able to do that. We actually can tell you exactly how many, what minerals, what dosage, what titration. The only thing they do is they take off the excess sodium. So there is sodium. Sodium is a mineral. Don't be afraid of sodium. It's in there. It's going to be part of it. But they take off excess sodium, which is higher in seawater, and then it becomes exactly the mineral balance that's found in the human placenta and pure blood plasma. So all 74 minerals, and maybe more. The reason why we know 74 is because that's what the scientists determine in the periodic table of minerals and the code of minerals. But there may be more minerals that we don't even know, but we're not researching more of these sourced minerals. And so they're available, and literally in 2 teaspoons a day, you're getting your full spectrum of minerals for everything. And what that does is it goes back and it activates all of those other 3 pillars, and it starts to play a role in that 4th pillar in exposing it. So it's just a huge transformation of what has happened. So how did I get involved? Like I said, when I started my practice, I was very much into minerals. I'm a biochemist. And so I used to recommend minerals, and I got distracted and recommended the next greatest thing and all that kind of stuff. And about a year ago, this company just showed up, and I started, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I thought, why did I stop? Oh yeah, because the product I was working with didn't work. And I started using this stuff, and within 24 hours, I'm like, wow, my energy feels really good. And then all kinds of other things, and then I started giving it all to my friends, and my friends, I've got a lot of high performance athletes and clients and kids, but it was when I gave it to teenagers that it transformed everything for me. Because teenagers are different, those that have them, and they go through this time. And I'm really committed to teenagers because there's a very specific time in their lives where their brain transforms. It's actually a scientific term called synaptic pruning, where the brain actually clips off all of those magical, imaginative memories of childhood and clips a lot of that off. And it's left with kind of a dead space. And unfortunately, you exhibit that dead space known as the teenage years. And and it's actually literally your brain coming to a matured point, and it's very, very affected by influence at that stage of the game. And it's why you forget things. It's why you're so affected by your hormones, why your peers are so important to you, why you feel things very traumatically and are very affected by specific things. Alcohol and drugs, and that's why it's so important for me that I work with teens and I work in the schools, because the brain is very, 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 very sensitive to these changes and can go in a very bad direction if given substances. And so the minerals seem to help teenagers. They do a few things. One, they make them feel a little more grounded with all the stuff that's going on. Secondly, they kind of get the brain a little bit on track and less influence. Third, they help to regulate a lot of different things that are going on, hormones being one of them. And ADD and ADHD and autism and all those types of things, not just affecting teenagers, but really get exacerbated during those teenage times. And I just saw an overwhelming change in children and their brain chemistry as a result of like 2 teaspoons of salty water. And that's what kept me committed to moving forward. And then I started to really research and look at these 1936 research papers by Dr. Maynard and read about the periodic table of minerals and understand even how genetically modified foods began and all kinds of stuff, and see that without minerals, we literally are 3-legged stool. We cannot commit that, but particularly from teenagers, their brains are they so need them. And then we have this other elderly or senior level of population where their brains are doing the opposite effect. So what happens in childhood with those synaptic pruning, what happens in adulthood is that the brain, I think, just is tired and it's overloaded and it's not uptaking these things. And the other thing is you start putting on minerals and the brain comes alive again. And it comes alive in a magical childlike manner. It becomes lightened and not in load of understanding and cognition, but light and those beautiful hormones as well. And then everybody seems to be benefiting. I mean, doesn't seem to have an end, and that's because it is the beginning. And when you start at the beginning, it doesn't have an end. It continues to go there. So what I always suggest to people is I say, okay, you've learned a lot tonight. And if you can take one thing home, or if you can do one thing, I always tell people, I said, why not try the minerals? And I said, do it for 21 days. Tell me what happens. Take the mineral challenge. See what happens. I'm more than willing to answer any of those other questions. But and people say, well, what if I'm taking this brand or that brand? All I can tell you is this is the only brand that I can tell you that tells you exactly what minerals are in there, at what level, and comes from the purest source in the world. And why is this important? Because minerals collectively take pollutants into their sphere. And if you take a toxic source of minerals, they will take the toxins into your body. That's the truth. So we want to make sure that whatever source we take of minerals, whether it's your diet, so if you take something that's dietarily rich in minerals, but it's toxic, it will collectively take that. It's called a radical. Not a free radical. It's not free anymore. It's bonded by the mineral. It's a radical. And when it becomes a radical in the body, and then it's released into the cells, then it's damaging. So I believe that minerals are the ultimate free radical, because they bond and they can take a radical away. But if you ingest a toxic mineral, that can create those problems, right? So this is your best detox. The other thing is, this pH balances you right away. Disease cannot proliferate in an acid environment. Inflammation can't exist in an acid environment. When you take minerals in full balance, you actually create a positive, in this case, you create a 7 to 7.2 alkaline balance to the digestive tract right away, and your body becomes alkaline. It's the #1 alkalining source in the body. So you become alkaline. So you become alkaline, and your body is in that lack of free radicals, and it's activating a pillar. So it's a start point. But don't stop taking everything else. Just see if maybe there's less things that you need to take, and you need to see if there's a correlation between that. So, and I'm going to open it up to questions. So your hand was perfectly timed.
Okay.
Yes.
If one is already taking a multivitamin supplement that contains minerals, is that going to be an overload on the mineral content of the multivitamin?
Fantastic question. So most minerals, and except for potentially maybe Samu Raw, who's going to bring in all this, most minerals found in a multivitamin there's usually only about 18 of them, and they're usually the macro minerals. They don't contain a lot of the trace minerals, and they don't contain the trace elements. The other thing is there's 21 electrolytes in here as well, which would not be found in a multivitamin. So if you're taking a multivitamin, you add the minerals, the full spectrum 74 minerals, you actually activate that multivitamin. It's a great synergy. Okay. Fantastic synergy, yeah.
So it's not toxic?
No, not at all. And these are trace elements, and they're electrolytes as well, too, so there's no overdose.
Soluble then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so your body doesn't store it?
No. I mean, no, let me answer that question. So there is storable minerals, which are but these are in trace compound amounts. So they're not in high elemental amounts that they would overdose the body, right? These are trace compounds. So if there's magnesium in here, it's not 500 milligrams of magnesium. It's a trace compound in synergy. So it's not a dosage, it's a synergy of minerals in here. Does that make sense? You're not getting these minerals for dosage. You're not taking these minerals for 500 milligram dosage of calcium. You won't find it in here. These are a spectrum of 74 minerals. So any mineral that you're taking on top, you're actually activating that mineral more specifically. This is not a dosage compound. It's a synergy of all 74. Yeah, it's a solution. So it's not it's not a compounding. It's a solution. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Did I confuse you more?
Yeah, that was way too extensive.
Okay.
I just needed a little version.
It's not a dosage compound, it's a solution.
For example, the magnesium in there would be like 2 milligrams. Would
Yeah.
be like trace amounts.
Yeah.
Trace, yeah.
Yeah, that's an example.
Just wonder how is it like, so is it using the water from far outside?
Yeah.
And it's just dry, but just drying and whatever is left.
Yeah, so it's actually a titration solution. So it's by weight. So minerals, electrons are bound by weight. So they have a machine that goes across, and then everything falls through the salts into a solution, and then they measure that compound as a solution, and then they put that into a product itself.
What about like the pollution, as pollution, like water right now, like everything is always far from the land. So you checking this?
Absolutely, and actually that's a fantastic question. So she was asking if it's tested, and I love that question. We absolutely do test, and we test under Australian Pacific continental testing, which is the highest testing. So in North America, we test pollutants. We only test 4 heavy metal pollutants in water solutions. Under Australian, the Pacific Coast, the Pacific Trade Coast testing system, they test for 350 microbial and heavy metals. It's the most rigorous testing. We provide, and this is what I love, you do not have to ask for it. You can go on the website, it's completely provided. All of the heavy metal testing and all of the mineral solution testing is right on the website. It's fully exposed, and it's also on our literature. What was actually, the minerals, not the testing, because that's dynamic, right? So, but it's absolutely, so very, very good question. And we actually just did a microbial testing that is the most advanced microbial testing that we know, and that comes from that side of the world. They're extremely rigorous. So yes, all of that testing is done, for sure. And we actually are less than what is allowed. We are 1/100th less, 1/100,000th less than what they allow in North America. So that's a huge, huge amount. So thank you for that question. Yes?
Have you seen people who have leaky gut issues use
product?
Yeah, so my brother's a good example. Many of my clients have leaky gut syndrome. And it's interesting because we're looking at leaky gut syndrome, and this is coming a lot from the microbiome lab at the University of Calgary. And they're trying to figure out whether leaky gut syndrome is a cause or a symptom. So is the inflammatory issue causing the leaky gut, or is that a symptom? The inflammation is symptom because the leaky gut is that. And so I take their research and I look at what they're looking at, and I say, well, what do minerals do? And at least 5 minerals that I can tell you reduce inflammation directly, and then another 15 are involved in what we call amino acid stitching, which allows to help to heal the gut itself. So they're intricately involved. So do they heal leaky gut? No, that's not something I can tell you, but they're involved in 2 processes. One in the inflammatory process, and also the second is helping the knitting process of the amino acids that make up the gastrointestinal wall. So they certainly have benefit for sure. And they're not acidic. So this is not an acidic or alkaline compound. It's a pH that's exactly neutral to our body, because so they're not coming in as something that's going to aggravate the gastro.
So reactions. You wouldn't expect your
No,
reaction?
we only think we've had some interesting reactions. I have a top level athlete in she lives in Victoria, and she has serious shoulder issue. And so she called me and she said, I have a really itchy shoulder. And I didn't actually know she had a shoulder injury. And I'm like, do you have a rash? She goes, no, it's like itchy. And I said, well, like, describe the itch. And so she's like, it's like something's like moving, like, it's like moving in there, and I can feel it. And it's actually, my shoulder's becoming more mobile. And I said, well, this is filling the synovial fluid. And I said, so what she was describing as itching was the synovial fluid. And I don't know, I don't have an MRI or whatever, I couldn't test her synovial. But when she thought about it, she goes, yeah, because my shoulder's become more and more mobile, because she had frozen shoulder. And I said, you don't have a rash? She goes, no. And then she called me back, she goes, that's what it is. She goes, it's not itchy, it's activating. Her shoulder is becoming more and more. So we have really strange reactions that way. So when I started taking it, it really energized me. And then the balance of minerals actually seemed to be more dociling to me. They helped me to relax. So I had to change the way I dosed them for me. So I take a small dosage in the morning, and then I take a heavier dosage at night. And we do most of recovery, recuperative sleep is where our body was repairing. So I had to change a few things. So that's another thing that can happen as well. But if you need a nap, and this is one of the things, so depending on where the minerals are, where your body's deficient, will activate and regulate different things in your body for sure. And for some people, it will cause them to pee more. Yeah. My mom didn't like that part. Yeah. But she had chronic urinary tract infection, so I said, Mom, this is a good thing. It's probably clearing out the bacteria. Yeah.
So it does have frozen shoulder, because I know another lady that's got frozen shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, any minerals, magnesium is particularly good for frozen shoulder, because frozen shoulder is a calcium uptake. It's basically the calcium has solidified into the shoulder itself. So magnesium and other minerals are going to be synergistic for that. Absolutely, yeah. Yes?
How does it affect stomach acid for digestion?
Yeah, so when we look, so stomach acid is produced within obviously the stomach. And this is a really good question. Remember way back I talked about the level of parasites, and we actually are coming up to having highest level of parasites in generationally, yet our hygiene seems to be better. Should be, right? You guys all wash your hands, hopefully. I was in the country teaching people to wash their hands. But primarily it's because our stomach acids have really become more alkaline. So we're not producing enough stomach acids, and a result of that is that things are fermenting, and they're giving us this sensation that we are over-aciding. Right, so then we're told to take Tums and antacids and stuff like that. But what's happened is we don't have enough pH, or pH is too high, so we're too alkaline in the stomach, not in the intestine, but in the stomach. And as a result of that, food is not being acid, so it's not being broken down by the acid, and it's causing fermentation. Not the type of good fermentation, but a negative fermentation. So this helps to regulate and bring down, in the case of the stomach, down the pH and help with hydrochloric acid. But I do recommend for many, if they have acid issues, to take the minerals and also to take a really good source of hydrochloric acid.
And then to take it with the food?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you can take these anytime. It's not like a multivitamin. You can take it with food or anything like that. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
When you were talking about how to take it, you mentioned you were taking it in the morning and the evening.
Yes.
So do we sort of figure out what works best for us, or do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, recommended it's 15 drops twice a day. I mean, really, it doesn't really matter. We just become, I guess, habituated to the fact that we take things twice a day. We take them at breakfast, we take them at dinner. But for some people, they will change it. I mean, at the end of the day, kind of 12 hours in between is a good regulatory process between the minerals. But I have some people that are taking 30 drops 3 times a day based on health issues that we're managing. So it does vary, and you really can't overdose the dosage amount. If you prefer, you can take your water bottle and you can put your full dose. Like I recommend 1 liter of water between the hours of waking up and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then between 1 o'clock and about 7 o'clock is another liter, so 2 liters a day. Obviously drinking more activity, but a lot of people will put like 15 to 20 drops in their water bottle, drink it throughout the day, and the second dose you can do it that way as well. You can put a few drops in things like that. But here's the thing, you don't have to take it just in water. Minerals are not destroyed by heat. You can put this in food. So I cook with it. I don't use salt in any way, so I put this in all my cooking. So I put my minerals, so my family gets the minerals, my dog gets it in his water and his food. You can put it on top of food. In its natural form, this tastes just slightly salty. We now have flavored forms, organic flavors. We have a lemon lime and we have a peppermint. And so, for many people, to get them to drink more water, this gives the water some flavor, some lift. You'll find that the water will have a slightly different texture because it's creating a formed water. Formed water actually brings in more hydrogen and oxygen, so it actually amplifies the absorption and hydration of the oxygen. And that's why it's alkalining to the body. Minerals are not, they create a pH, but they also draw more oxygen to the cells as well. So that's one of the benefits of the flavored one. So what I do is I throw the minerals in my food, and then I also put them in my water and I drink them throughout the day. So 15 drops twice a day is just the bare minimum, but you can definitely go beyond that. And that's usually what I recommend to people, is I actually say, take the large bottle, put it in your food, get it in everybody's health, and then take these and put them in the water. Take it for it, flavored one, put it in your water to absorb, to enjoy the flavor of the water as well. And we also have a topical spray. Lots of magnesium sprays. This has magnesium in it. It has 150 milligrams of magnesium, but it has all 74 minerals. So it's not just working on the muscle system, which is primarily where magnesium works on. This works on the nervous system. So if you have issues like shingles, that type of thing, where they're getting a nerve abrasion, that type of stuff, it works there. It works on any kind of skin issues. I was over in Belize, as I mentioned, and it works on bug bites. If you go to Belize, make sure you bring stuff. There's all kinds of interesting things. But we also had a flea outbreak. So it works on all kinds of bug bites. It works on abrasions. Because this is a saltwater solution, you can actually put it right on abrasions, so it's antimicrobial as well. So it's kind of like a first aid kit that way. It also works on sunburns. So these are my first-hand experiences. And it works on joint pain, not just muscle pain, but also on joint pain as well. We've had people use it, for migraine headaches, neck pain, all that kind of stuff as well. So, and you wouldn't overdo, like if you were to take this in your water and this in your food and this on your body, you're not overdosing. Your body's using it in a totally different pathways. So, yeah. That's, yeah.
My comment will have a few questions in
Yeah.
it. The first one is, I remember reading something many, many years ago that there were 11 amino acids, but you show 9.
9 essential.
9 essential.
And there's actually 15 amino acids,
Okay.
but 9 essential. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, can you take that for life? There's no 3 weeks on, 1 week off,
No.
any requirement for that?
No.
Does D, if you take a D vitamin and it doesn't say D3, do you assume it's D3? Is there any hidden marketing or anything we should know about wording?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you're in a reputable health food store, and anybody, anything that they're going to have on their shelf here is going to be a proper source, D3. So I can only comment on where you're sourcing the product from, right? Like if you're stepping into a source that, you know, and also whether it's a natural source. If it's not a natural source, we sell. Not me is the we or this store, but I mean available on the market is artificial vitamins, so synthetic vitamins, and they will not be D3 sourced. So know your source, make sure that you're sourcing, and if you're sourcing properly, then yes, you can make that assumption.